let's have a look at another couple of propaganda posters. And this time we want to see Hitler positioned not as a religious figure, as happened in this Liebe Deutschland, but as this heroic historical figure. Now, these portraits all played a part in either the Nazis' rise to power or Nazis' consolidation of power, the way they built myths around Hitler. So let's explore it a bit, and I'm going to start off firstly with portraits of Hitler himself that have taken place over the time that he was on his march to power or in power. So this is an extremely famous image of Hitler. Ein Volk, ein Reich, ein Führer. Try saying that. Ein Volk, ein Reich, ein Führer. Ein means one. So, if you're making notes, firstly I'd suggest you write down that very, very famous Nazi slogan. Secondly, the repeated use of ein. One, one. Unity, 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 unity. Stressing singularity, not multiple choices. This is not democratic here. It is one. There is one regime. And that one regime, of course, is going to be totalitarian. So Hitler, ein. The second word there, Volk. Volk. Volk is a little bit close to our concept of folk, F-O-L-K. Volk, folk. Now the concept to the Nazis of the Volk, Volk as in Volkswagen, by the way, the car, the Volk is the people. But it means also a little bit more than that. It's an idea of the nation. It's an idea of an ethnicity. It's an idea of the group and having ties to the people. It's an idea of the people as community. So there's not really quite a clear translation to it, but ein Volk probably is best for a simple version translated as one people. It's then followed up with Reich. Now Reich comes up in German history a bit. The Nazis referred to their regime as the Third Reich. Now the Third Reich obviously tells us there were two others. The First Reich was in medieval times under Charles the Great, Carolus Magnus, or you possibly learnt about him in medieval times when you were studying history in lower grades as Charlemagne, the Holy Roman Emperor. So ein Volk, one people, ein Reich is something connected with the way we rule. Charlemagne the First Reich. The Second Reich was under Kaiser Wilhelm II. So the Second Reich is Imperial Germany. So we've got this idea of empire coming up. Charlemagne, Holy Roman Emperor, Second Reich, German Empire, Kaiser. Okay. And the Third Reich is what Hitler put in place. The word Reich probably best translates to nation, but it could mean empire. It could mean a way of ruling. So again, translations are a funny thing. So we've got ein Reich, sorry, I've read it right, ein Volk, one people, ein Reich, one nation, one empire, one regime, one rule, ein Volk, ein Reich, ein Führer. Now that is a pretty clear term that we should be aware of. You all know what Führer means. Quickly write it down. Good. You wrote down leader. So we're talking about one leader, one way of leading, one group of people. Ein, singularity. And of course, the one leader for the Reich and the people is Hitler. Notice he's wearing his brown outfit, the brown shirts of the Nazi Party, the brown uniform of the Nazi Party, and we can see the red armband of the Hakenkreuz on his sleeve, on his left sleeve. Notice the nobility here, the hint of red in the background of the national colours, the hint of white of the national colours, staring nobly into the distance. This is very, very engineered as a portrait of Hitler and propaganda poster. Let's see if it's a theme that runs through. I'd suggest to you I can see a theme. Number one, Hitler, standing as he is very similar to number 3, very clearly a similar pose. And number 4, okay, slightly different pose, slightly different facial expression, slightly different age, but there. Number 2, which was often used as a photograph in the front covers of Hitler's book Mein Kampf, which was written while he was in Landsberg jail and contains all of his, I guess, his political ideas. A lot more front on and piercing. Look at those eyes staring straight out. A younger Hitler wearing the uniform of the SA, highlighting that Hakenkreuz to the camera. Let's look at the kind of slogans that are used. Ein Volk, ein Reich, ein Führer. Very simple, easily repeated. Even as a non-German speaker, I can get onto it. Number 3, one word, a short word. Ja. Ja. J-A. Ja. J's pronounced as Y's. Take a moment and think, do you know what that means? I'll give you a hint. It's the opposite of Nein. Ja. Nein. Ja. Nein. Ja. And it's an exclamation word marked. Ja. Means yes. Yes. One people, one nation or empire, one leader. Yes. Yes. It could be a celebratory yes, punch in the air, yes. Or it could be just simply yes, determination. But again, similar. It's possible that we've actually got exactly the same artwork there, but different way, different positioning. Worth thinking about. Let's have a look at the last one. Adolf Hitler ist der Sieg. Now that I'd like you to extend down. Somehow the imagery that I've got there is cut off. That's capital S-I-E-G. Sieg. Now, Sieg is an interesting word. We're probably all familiar with the Nazi salute that shows up in 1,000,000 movies. Slight exaggeration there. I've told you 1,000 times not to exaggerate. But many of you have heard of the Nazi Heil Hitler salute, okay? Often done with an outstretched arm in front, like the ancient Romans. More common was the Nazi salute, which Hitler himself would lead, and it was Sieg Heil. Sieg Heil. Heil means hail. Sieg means victory. So, in this case, Adolf Hitler ist der Sieg. Adolf Hitler is the victory. Adolf Hitler is the victory. Interesting. Sieg Heil, Heil Hitler, ja, Adolf Hitler ist der Sieg, ein Volk, ein Reich, ein Führer. One of the, I guess, masterful aspects of Nazi political advertising and propaganda was the simplicity of slogans, the simplicity of imagery. Remember, of course, that the red, the white, and the black that you're seeing that show up in a couple of these images, and you're familiar with in things like the Hakenkreuz swastika armband and the Nazi imagery, remember they were the colours of Imperial Germany. They were national colours. By the way, red was also a colour associated with the Communist Party, so he was in a way speaking to them as well. He's saying that if you want a revolution, that red revolutionary colour is associated with us. But then he's wearing the uniform of the Freikorps, of the SA. He's wearing a military uniform of the Nationalists and saying, well, I'm kind of like that. I wonder if these images also appeal to others. We know that the German bureaucracy and judiciary were associated with the aristocrats of Kaiser Wilhelm's reign. Look what he's done here. This is Kaiser Wilhelm. Look at the same facial expression, the use of uniform. Remember, Hitler was a civilian politician, but he's very careful to look military in many of his uniforms here. I suggest to you, as I've got on my yellow question box here, perhaps these poses, slogans and expression position him as a man and a leader that Germans will accept. Maybe the Nazi Party are motivated by a desire to position him as a traditional German leader, maybe borrowing a little bit from the imagery we see in Kaiser Wilhelm. I'm a little bit struck by the head tilt of Kaiser Wilhelm in number 6 when we compare it to the head tilt in number 4. a look in the eyes. There's a softening look in the eyes that isn't here in number 2. I think we're seeing some similarities here. The hand positions of 4 are a little bit similar to what we would traditionally see in images of royalty in Germany in number 5. So there's something going on here. Perhaps, and this is what I'm saying in our purple or lilac box there, perhaps there are similarities between the way the Nazis wanted to portray Hitler. Maybe they're seeing him as a new Kaiser. Maybe that idea of the Reich. There was Charlemagne, there was the Kaiser, now there's Hitler. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All the same. If you want to continue the glories of the past, Hitler is the man for you. Now, not everyone bought into this, and I really quite like the artworks of David Lowe. David Lowe, New Zealand artist, working for the Daily Mail in London. He became one of the leading Allied World War II artists who put out propaganda against Hitler. In the early days of Lowe's artworks, where he depicted Hitler, he had a lot of trouble taking Hitler seriously. He thought he was pretentious, trying to be something he's not. I guess what we might say, David Lowe saw Hitler as a bit of a try-hard Kaiser. Have a look at this artwork and pause your video when it's up there and maybe do some scribbling on it and thinking about it. I love this artwork. David Lowe put himself in a position, by the way, during World War II, that if Britain were defeated and Lowe was captured, he was going to be sent to a concentration camp. He personally took offence, Hitler personally took offence at David Lowe. Hitler knew Lowe by name. He was someone that he wanted to arrest. So, let's have a little look at the background here. In this case, we have a little Hitler wearing on oversized boots and clothes that don't quite fit, a children's wooden sword. Hitler, of the news, is trying to be something he's not, like a child plays dress-up. The German people are looking on as if parents, judging this upstart brat that's gone through the cupboard and pulled out the same old Kaiser outfits, the same old tried costumes that were done in World War I and previous eras. The hat will be a little bit too big, the glove will be a little bit too big, and so on. Now, there's quite a lot of cleverness in here. One of the great figures of German history was Otto von Bismarck, and he made the point that power would be exercised best through an iron hand in a velvet glove. Be tough, but soft in outward appearance. Notice how Lowe's put an iron hand on the ground. Notice the skull and crossbones on the Kaiser's helmet, remembering Kaiser Wilhelm took Germany into the First World War. Now, if you look in the background in the cupboard, you can see other costumes that Hitler might try on, other grander, bigger, things that aren't quite the right fit for him. Hitler is trying on the spiked moustache of Kaiser Wilhelm. And Lowe is saying, the emperor look doesn't quite work for you, Adolf, and mocking it. So have a think about that. When you see imagery in your history books online of people like Otto von Bismarck, they were much bigger physically people than Adolf Hitler. I would suggest to you that this outfit here is possibly the uniform of even Hindenburg, the president. The helmets, similar to Paul von Hindenburg, the German president, the war hero, that don't quite fit Hitler. So, an interesting cartoon. Let's push on then to one last one. This imagery is showing the reverse of what Lowe was trying to do. During the political campaigns of March 1933, the Nazis used postcards. If you were sending messages to friends, you could get a free postcard, a little bit like this being handed out in the mall advertising things, and you'd write your messages on the back, pop it in the mail, and someone would not only get a letter from you, but they'd get a little bit of political propaganda. On this particular artwork, we have what the Nazis considered the great figures of German leadership, and it harks back to different times. We've got on the left Frederick the Great. We've then got Otto von Bismarck. We've then got Field Marshal Hindenburg. And then finally we have Hitler, looking slightly odd one out by wearing different type of clothes, by the way. He does like, which one of these ones don't belong in my eyes, but I can see what the Nazis are perhaps doing here. They're associating Hitler with the great figures of Germany's history. I guess they're trying to borrow a little bit of credibility, borrow a little bit of prestige for Hitler. He's not just some upstart, radical, right-wing political agitator from Bavaria here with a funny, slight Austrian accent that doesn't sound respectable. He's one of the great figures of German history, just like Frederick the Great, Otto von Bismarck, Paul von Hindenburg. So, look at the slogan that went with it, and you can see in German the slogan written down here under each of the images. It says, what the king, König is king, conquered, the prince, von Bismarck, shaped, formed, put into place, turned into Germany, the great unifier of Germany. The field marshal defended it as leader, general, field marshal during World War I. And the soldier, the corporal of World War I, saved and united. And isn't that interesting how it's hinting back to the concept of Messiah, Saviour, that we saw in Es Liebe Deutschland. So, continue thinking about these posters and see where they lead us. A few little summary points, perhaps, is as follows, and you can read it, I know, but I'll read it to you. So during the Weimar era of 1919 to 33, the NSDAP was very eager to portray Hitler in a way which connected him to imagined, maybe real, glory of German history. The Nazis are amongst the first modern masters of political advertising and propaganda. It's a significant part of their rise to power, if you have to discuss that in assessment. They drew upon deep cultural and historical understandings and themes. They drew upon deep cultural touchstones, ideas you could grab out and quantify. And they took real care to make sure they didn't alienate their audience of potential voters, particularly in Es Liebe Deutschland, where they've stopped short from quite using religious imagery and words. The NSDAP were careful to position Hitler as a unifying figure, ein, vision and strength and courage shown in the face and jawline, and the slogans and propaganda were simple, often repeated. The Nazis attempted to associate Hitler and themselves with the glories of a German past.